Hello everyone, welcome back to Folding Knife Part 3. So here I'm making a stainless steel foil envelope to put the blade in for heat treat. This just keeps the scale off of it and is necessary when you're heat treating stainless steel. So I just fold over the edges a couple times and then hammer them flat. I also use a vise for this because it's once you start getting a couple layers you can't really do it with your fingers. As you can see here, just kind of grabbing the vise, bend it over, and then use a hammer just to crimp it all the way. Here's my heat treating oven. It's got digital control. So you can see I set it to 1950 and then I let it sit for about I think it's about 50 minutes. You can find all the specs to heat treat whatever steel you're doing online. In this case I'm quenching it in between two aluminum bars, so I have my dad helping me here. So I just set it down and then put the two bars, which I have milled flat so the blade doesn't warp, and a big chunk of copper to hold them together. After I let it cool, just cutting it out of the foil sheet. You can see it keeps most of the scale off, but there's still some discoloring. But it's definitely much cleaner than it would be if it's in the normal air. So now I'm just grinding the bevels. This is pretty much the same for any knife you're making. I like using these ceramic belts and about 60 grit. I don't really like 36 grit for this kind of thing. It's kind of coarse, and when you start the edge of the knife on that 90-degree corner, it kind of scrapes off all the big chunks. If it's a slightly finer grit, I find it lasts a little longer. So this is kind of a touch thing. It's really hard to show in video. You just start learning how to do it as you just do a lot of practice with this if you haven't done it before. I did use I don't know if you can see that, but I have a pair of pliers cramped on the end of this blade because there's no handle on it because it's a folding knife. Makes it easier to do. So now I just start polishing the blade. This takes a while. I just use these little 320 grit stones and some WD. It takes a long time, but there's really no other way to do this. If you used a machine or something, it would kind of round off all the bevel and stuff, and it wouldn't look as nice. So here you can see there's still some scratches in there, so you just go until you can't see any vertical scratches. Once I've done that, I go up to sandpaper. I think this is 600 grit, and then I just nice long strokes along the blade there. And there you go. You can see you can get really nice polish on the blade. So here, this is just an aesthetics thing, but I kind of thought that front handle was kind of bland without anything on it. So here I'm using a 3/16 end mill, and I'm just cutting 3 grooves at just kind of an unspecified angle. I think I only went about 10 thou down, just enough so you could see them and feel them, but they don't affect the structural abilities of the handle or anything like that. I'm really glad I did this, because without it that front handle was kind of bland, and this really made it interesting. I could have added a wood layer or something like that, but whenever I've done that on other knives it ends up being pretty fragile, and I kind of liked the thin cross section of this knife. I might mess with this where I might do a second set of lines kind kind of through these to make kind of a hatch pattern or something like that. I just did a little bit of sanding on that front handle just to get rid of the burrs. And I didn't polish inside the grooves because I liked that kind of machining finish that was left in there. So here I'm pressing in the detent ball. I don't do this until the very end because you can't polish that side of the knife once the detent ball is in there, because you'll just kind of file the ball down and there's no way to replace that or put in a new one. So there's all the pieces ready for assembly. So I'm just bending the lock bar in, and once again I don't do this until the very end because if I bend this before I have polished it, it becomes really hard to polish either side of that handle with that bent out in a weird way. So just some adjustments to get the blade the right tension. I was having a little bit of trouble with the Teflon washer here, so I was trying to get right. So yeah, it works pretty well, feels good. As you can see, it really turned out well, and you can see those lines look pretty nice, and you can see the kind of spiral patterns the end mill left. I'm really happy with this knife, and I blackened the screws and pivot, as you can see, and I put flats on the pivot so I can tighten that a little bit more. But yeah, it really turned out well, and I'm really happy with it. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope it was educational. So yeah, please like, comment, and subscribe.